professor says so. You are an expert in internet, let's say. You are an expert in research. One of the most important things that people have now in mind is social media. Do I have to be there? Do I have to not to be? It's just for bad talk, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, I don't know. Every day it's another new one. What do you think about social media?
What I think about social media is a whole lot less important than what the rest of the world thinks about social media. And so it's not my opinion, it's the activity and the behavior of over 2 billion people now, 2,000 million people. 2 billion people are now connected to social media, and tomorrow it will be 3 billion people. And even if I am completely disgusted with what I see on social media, the fact remains that that is where people are. It used to be where all young people were. It is now also where their grandparents are, because the grandparents want to be in touch with the young people. It has become the main town square. Now, years ago, you wouldn't ask, what do you think about the town square? Do you think I should be there? Well, it doesn't really matter if I think I should be there. That's where things happen. That's where economic activity takes place. That is where opinions are formed. That is where demonstrations take place. That is where education happens. That is where new ideas are sprouted. And so, whether or not you like it, it is here to stay, and it's probably going to even grow faster. There are 3 components to what people call social media. There is the fact that people are there, and we can call that the social fact. There are 2 additional facts that are joining the bandwagon as we speak. In addition to the fact that everybody is there, people are spending hours on end. The average Israeli spends 2 hours a day on social media. I don't know the numbers for Mexico, but I would imagine that for many Mexicans, this is not very different. The average is
it's supposed to be very high in Mexico, and Mexico is one of the countries with most people in social media. For what we know, and in Facebook, it's incredibly high.
And it's just a phenomenon gaining momentum around the world. So I said there are 3 components. One component is the social component, just the numbers of people and the number of hours that they spend, and the fact that that's where people find their jobs, where employers find their employees, where people find their romantic connections, where children pass their time, where learning takes place in a variety of ways. The second component is younger, and this is the mobile component. The fact that not only is there social media, but people connect to the social media with new kinds of devices that are in their pocket, that are with them all the time. It's no longer just a device that sits on a desktop and you get to at the end of the day or during work hours. It is something that is with you all the time during your commute hours, when you're doing other things. It is just at the tip of your fingers 24 hours a day. And the third component is the fact that this device knows where you are, the localizability. And because of the localizability, mobility, the second theme, becomes even more important. If I'm on a trip to Mexico, I no longer just announce to my friends, I'm back from my trip, do you want to read my blog? I announce to my friends, I am right now at the Museum of Anthropology. I am right now having a conversation with my friend Isaac, and so forth. These 3 components, social, local, and mobile, have turned into a new form of living, really a new form of living. If our forefathers were hunters and gatherers, and then they changed into farmers and settled down, and then they moved into the cities and became people of industry and service, they are now becoming people of social media, because they are social and mobile and localizable. These 3 components answer your question. Can we afford to ignore this? No more can we afford to ignore this than people could afford to ignore the agricultural revolution, when hunters and gatherers who were nomads settled down. Or no longer can we afford to ignore this than people could afford to ignore the Industrial Revolution, when farmers suddenly migrated in large numbers to the city. It's just changing the way of our life.
I'm sure in your Internet Research Center, one of the topics is security. How secure are social media? Many people say, don't put nothing in there, don't put. But the truth is, Google, Face, YouTube, knows everything about us, and like you said it, they know we are in Mexico, they know what we are doing, they know what we are eating, and what we like. Is this secure? We have to keep our children out of that. What do we have to do?
We need to make several distinctions. The first distinction is between secure and private. Social media are not private. Don't expect them to be private. Don't think
not even if I put, I don't want nobody to contact me.
The only way for them to be private is to turn electricity off. That's the only way for this to actually happen. The second distinction between security and privacy is the question of whether we want privacy to exist. Are we interested in privacy for ourselves or for our children? If you want privacy for your children, go live in a tent on a mountaintop, no electricity, no telephone, and of course,
I was hoping you will say, don't use internet, but you gave me another answer, all right.
Well, internet is becoming interwoven into telephony. It's interesting to watch what happened to Mubarak in Egypt.
Yes.
He tried to shut off the internet. He knew that part of the threat to his authority came from the internet. So he decreed that internet would be turned off. It was turned off, but he couldn't turn off telephony, and internet is so interwoven with telephony. Twitter can have messages and display messages that the only way to get separated from this is to cut off electricity and to move out to barren lands. That's not going to happen, and so it's a moot discussion. Second question about security is whether there is any personal harm beyond privacy. Will they take away my stuff? Will they cause some personal security in terms of personal violence damage? And it actually turns out that this technology increases personal security. The fact that people can contact others from anywhere at any time increases personal safety. It also increases sense of personal safety. Notice the number of, for example, young women walking down the street with the telephone at their ear. This is a comfort device. It's not anti-security, it is security. So you asked about research about security. We do study security. It's a coin with two sides. There are some advantages and some disadvantages. There are a variety of measures that are technological, regulation, international treaty, and also just moral, what you believe you should do, that one should deal with. There are questions of what do you do if you're a parent with your child. There's a question of what do you do if you're an adult with your romantic contacts. There's a question if you're an employer, what do you do with your employees? There's a question if you're a manager, what do you do with the environment you manage? These are not going to be simple questions, and the answers are not going to be simple either. An answer such as, turn it off, it's bad, simply won't work. It will not turn off and it will not go away. An answer that says, this is wonderful, let's embrace it and allow it and not worry about anything, is a bad answer as well. That is, there's a middle line, there's a middle place that needs to be taken, and that is where my research institute is acting, in designing technology that helps you take more control over your security concerns, in producing studies that look at the procedures and the process of evolution of these technologies, and in making policy suggestions. We are part of several advisory boards, both local in Israel and internationally in the United Nations, a member of the UNESCO and so forth, dealing with information society concerns. These deal with privacy legislation, they deal with privacy activities, they deal with new technology, they deal with the sorts of things that can be put in that might turn threats into advantages. Think about older technologies. Think about the television, for example. For 50 years, people were concerned about the damage television does to our children, to our educational system, and so forth. The internet is 10 times as powerful as the television. It's 1,000 times more complex. It is probably 1,000,000 times richer in terms of levels of variety and content, everything from pornography to religion, everything from politics to business. And so the answers cannot be sweeping and simple. They need to be sophisticated and they need to be thought out. That's what a research center is about.
Right. If I'm a normal person, and after everything you have told us, if I'm a normal person, what should I do with internet and with social media?
Well, I think you need to be aware of social media. There's a wide spectrum between people who are into it too much, and sometimes they're into it so much that they are not aware of opportunities to leave or cut down or do less, and all the way to people who are either ignorant or opposed. I think that most people know too little about both the opportunities and the threats. There are layers of benefits that can be garnered from social media, benefits that are social, even medical, certainly political, educational, and there are also layers of damage, waste of time, and even worse. You need to teach yourself, you need to educate yourself. I think that we learned about all new media when they were introduced. We learned this about television at its heyday. We learned it about film at its heyday. We even learned this about books when books were new. That a medium in and of itself can be neutral. A book can carry messages of religion or great novels. It could also be pornography or hatred. The same goes for film, the same goes for television. What we need is media literacy. We need literacy of internet. We need it at all levels. We need to look at young children learning how to use this technology, sometimes teaching adults.
Yes.
We need to look, you can look at a 4-year-old trying to open up a picture on a magazine, just like they would on a tablet. We need to develop media literacy at all levels. We need to make sure that these media are used for good purposes, for strengthening the family, for enhancing education, for making more social solidarity and support, for making political conversation more useful.
Can social media change the world?
Oh, absolutely. It's already changing the world in many ways. We are involved in my research center in a variety of social activity projects. We're very interested in digital divide, in the difference between those who have and or understand and those who don't have or don't understand. There's a great opportunity for us to harness these technologies to close social gaps, to help the disadvantaged, to bring information to people who don't currently have information, to spread medical information, to make international relations more civil. So yes, social media can change the world. Social media has already changed the world in senses that we're not even aware of. For example, 10 or 15 years ago, people were writing a lot less and reading a whole lot less. They were sitting like zombies in front of the television, not really doing much, being passive. Social media has brought back activity, writing, and in many ways literacy.
And communication. Somebody says that social media has broken the communication between the young, that they don't communicate anymore because they don't speak, but they text, they write.
They communicate more.
Exactly.
The question is not whether they communicate. Of course they communicate. When you see a teenager sitting up in their room, not playing football, but just playing Facebook, it just might be that they are doing a whole lot more communication, not a whole lot less, with a whole lot more kinds of people, maybe with people of more specific interest to them. So yes, social media is not able to change the world, it already is changing the world. It is also erasing some borders that may have been very problematic, even during the Gaza conflict last week.
Yes.
We saw interesting communication going on that probably would not have been possible prior to social media in a variety of ways. Of course, social media is also used for hate and for incitement and for propaganda and for bad uses, and it's probably more tempting and more easy for it to fall into that world. But if you think about social media in comparison to its predecessors, if you think about social media in comparison to radio, television, or print, or the absence of media at all, in many ways social media has a very positive message.